Hello and greetings. Welcome to another Wild Medicine podcast. This is your host, Earthny, and I am so grateful to be bringing another episode to you. The Wild Medicine podcast is a safe space where anyone and everyone can come and learn about all things holistic healing. Letting go of the conventional ways of addressing blockages like depression, anxiety, and even things as far as living in a busy life and learning how to balance finding yourself in a world that seems to be looking away from the inner world. It is my honor to hold this space. This podcast is sponsored by my online store, Earthny, where you can find energy healings, readings, and holistic healing products I call spirit gear. We have Reiki-charged jewelry and apothecary products for the sacred soul, making your self-love practice a sacred ritual. Check it out on earthny.com. In today's episode, I am bringing on a very lovely guest named Fabienne. She is an author and life coach and teacher for the Insight Timer, which is an app where you can go on and meditate and have online courses with people from all over the world. Her first book, 28, The Age of Power, was awarded the best self-published spiritual book of the year 2019 in the Soul and Spiritual Book Awards. Her work has been featured on a number of publications, including the Kindred Spirit Magazine, Vegan Life Magazine, and the Mike Dooley's The Universe Talks. Fabienne teaches stressed-out, busy professionals the secrets to transforming their life through restoring their health, power, and purpose with her 5-step elevated coaching program. She is the creator of Learning How to Love, a 10-day course which is featured on the Insight Timer platform. Fabienne is currently working on her sequel, 30, The Age of Love, where she shares her journey of learning how to love. This woman is so amazing and so powerful. I really truly enjoyed getting to know her better through this podcast. And a lot of the things that she said during our conversation really sparked something special in me and really helped me look at love in a new way. So the entire theme of this podcast is actually love and how we can invite love into our life in a way that hasn't been practiced conventionally and hasn't been practiced by the modern person. So switching that up to a way where we can live a more holistic and live a more heart-centering lifestyle in even the most mundane of ways. She is an extremely powerful person, and, I think that having her here on the podcast is really going to help a lot of you through, the struggles that we face as we are growing and learning to be spiritual people living in a world that sometimes can seem a little dim of that light. She really explains how we can take everyday activities, even as driving our car or eating food, and turning them into awakening, light-centered, and heart-centered experiences just by simply loving. We also dive really deep into the concept of what love is and how to let go of the toxic ideas and beliefs that we have been programmed to believe about love, and how we can take that deep down burning desire to feel fulfilled in a loving relationship through another human, into channeling that into loving ourselves and fulfilling that need within so that we can manifest the partner of our dreams. We also touch on things of the nature of self-love and how you can simply love yourself through thought processes and thinking patterns rather than practices. But we also do share practices that you can incorporate into your everyday life to really help ground your self-love into something that will help you build healthy boundaries and helping coping mechanisms. I'm honestly very excited to bring forth this podcast because I know a lot of you have been reaching out to me with questions about self-love and really asking questions about how to love yourself and how to love others deeper. So instead of making a podcast where I sit there and tell you guys, I thought it'd be powerful to bring on another human being whose entire work is centered around learning how to love again. And so I really hope that you guys enjoy this podcast. If there's any moment within this podcast episode that just really, really strikes your heart and your mind and your body and your spirit, and you want to tell me and share it with the world, go ahead and take a screenshot of the time and where you're at in the podcast, and go ahead and tag me at the Wild Medicine Podcast on Instagram, and I'll feature it on my story so other people can know exactly where you felt your heart just overwhelmed with love and lessons of true bliss and spirituality. Also, if you would like to give a review, that always helps us. It helps me get more people onto the podcast to teach you guys more about holistic healing and wild medicine. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into this episode. Thank you guys so much, and please enjoy. Hi, Fabienne. Welcome to the podcast. How's it going?
It's going so good. Thanks for having me.
Of course. It's such a pleasure to have you on here. So I just wanted to start out with you sharing a little bit about, who you are, where you come from, and kind of the medicine work that you're doing in your life right now.
Oh, okay. Well, how long have we got? This could take a while.
Yeah, right? Yeah, just go ahead and give us what you got.
Okay, let's do it. So yeah, my name is Fabienne. My current medicine, let's start with that part first, because that's the juicy bit, right? So my current medicine is love. It has to be love. It's always been love for me. And it took me quite a while, about 28 or 30 years to actually come to the understanding that love really is the medicine, but I truly believe that. So the work that I do, I guess a little intro about me is I'm a life coach. I'm an author of the book 28, The Age of Power, and I'm also a teacher on the meditation app Insight Timer. And you can find out more about my, I guess, love medicine on the Insight Timer app, where I've posted a lot of different talks, and I also have a course called Learning How to Love. And I guess my journey to getting there initially was really all around was actually about power. It wasn't about love at all. And it was really about empowering myself and empowering others, and allowing people to step into their purpose and become who they really want to be, and kind of step away from like the society conditioned ideas of what we should be or how we should be, and really just like becoming ourselves. And so that's where my work started out about, I guess, almost 3 years ago now. And I went on a whole journey during my Saturn's return, and was just like my whole life was like upside down. Like I was doing something so different before. It was like this was not my work before. It's crazy how dramatically like I've changed. But yeah, it started on a power journey, really just like understanding like, wow, like I have all this power, and I'm able to do good with that. And after coming out of the kind of power journey and really understanding, wow, like, I can achieve anything that I want, and I can become anybody that I want, and I don't need to be kind of refined or put into a box or labeled. I can really just choose. Moving through that was when the love started to come through, because I was thinking about my second book and how I really wanted to write something else that, could inspire others and, get them to look at life differently. And it was just so obvious to me that love had been like, something I'd been passionate about my whole life, and always been so curious to understand what love really was. And so I went on an entire year's journey, called it the Age of Love, really. Aww. So my 30th birthday, one whole year dedicated to love, understanding it in all ways, shapes, and forms, basically.
That's so powerful. And so to you, I would like to hear like what your definition of love is and your understanding of love, because I really feel like, we all have our own ideas of what love is. And we all have our own connections and memories that are associated with it. So I would love to hear what your definition of love is, and kind of how your definition has changed since you've come into this new state of being and understanding of yourself and how you fit into this world.
Oh, okay. This is a really good question. And actually, it's one of the first things. It's so interesting you would ask me that, actually, because it's one of the first things that I get people to do when they are on the course. So it really is about defining love for yourself, whatever that means to you. So for me, I think love traditionally, I used to just think of in a romantic form. I had this deep longing to be with, you know, my spiritual partner, to be with the person, my other half, and all of this. But I wasn't really looking at myself. Like, I was looking at other people and I guess how they were loving me, and like if that was right. But I wasn't looking at how am I loving the world? How am I actually seeing love? So I think that for me, the way that I define love is love is everything. Love is everything, and it's everywhere. And all we need to do is tap into that source. It's kind of, you know, it's like it's an energy at the end of the day, and you have
100%.
yeah, you just have to tap into it. And once you've tapped into it and you're tuned in and you're in alignment with that, you find it everywhere. Like, it's in everything you do. It's in the way that you drink your water. It's in the way that you drive your car. It's in the way that you let someone cross the street, or you hold a door open for someone, or the way that you are with your romantic partner. But it's everything.
It's everything.
So,
and I think, you know, and for I believe that, you know, we all come from love within the start of this lifetime, before this lifetime, you know, everything. Usually, like, when people come into the world, the first thing that we experience, the first energy that is given to us is love. And so expanding upon that and remembering that, you know, it's a whole multidimensional experience. And like you said, everything we do can I totally agree with that. Everything we do can and should come from a space of love. And especially when, you know, it comes to ourselves and, you know, how we treat ourselves. I think that's one thing, like you said, you know, I think a lot of us can relate with that, just seeing our love as being, you know, what other people are expressing to us, especially in a romantic setting or, you know, a family setting, but also what about us and how we love ourselves and how we project our love out there. So I totally love that whole, you know, exclamation that you just gave us. It's powerful.
Oh, thank you. And I loved yours. And I think, you know, it comes with this, I kind of, you know, I have this saying all the time. It's just about living with a lens of love. You know, it's literally just doing your best. Like, every day is going to be different. So it's not like, you know, some days you wake up and maybe you're cranky, you're having a bad day, but it's like, how can I put a lens of love on this? Because if you can offer your heart to the world, and if you can share your love with the world, the love will come back to you. Like, the world will share it back to you. And maybe not in every example, right? But it's like, when someone is having a bad day and you can just offer them, like, and hold space for them in like a loving way, that's like literally all that we need. Because I think that a lot of the time, and this is what's I find so sad, is that a lot of the time, you know, whether it's a romantic setting, whether it's friendships, whether it's family, you know, whatever it happens to be, even work colleagues, right? A lot of the time, someone does something bad. We want to call it bad, right? And then we remove our love from them. And actually, that is the exact moment that person needs your love, like, more than anything in the whole entire world, because they, probably more than you, know that they've done something wrong. Yet what we do as like a society, and what we're kind of conditioned to do, is to take that love away and say, no, you are bad.
Yeah, you're not worthy of my love, or that is so true.
Yeah. So it's really just about unconditional love in all ways, shapes and forms.
Awesome. So what are some of your favorite, like, loving practices? Like, what are some things that, you know, maybe you share in your course or this in your daily life where you kind of find yourself in that loving space, and how you can share that with the world? Like, what are some ways that you do that?
Yeah. I'd love to share some. So, I mean, yoga is a big part of my life. I absolutely adore yoga. So any kind of heart-opening practices, any kind of ways in which I can set the intention at the beginning of my yoga practice to you know, be love or to share love. I think that's really important. So if you have a practice, it could even be, while you're in the gym. So you're like, okay, while I'm in the gym today, I'm going to be thinking about the intention, setting the intention for love, or, while I'm going on a walk, I'm going to think about setting the intention for love. So I think, setting intentions during like a daily practice that you already have, so you don't have to necessarily go out of your way to create something brand new, but bringing that intention into something you already do is really, really important. Let me think, what other ones? Well, there's other practices which are, I'm not sure I would call them practices, but more like understandings that I think that we need to become more aware of. There's something called attachment styles, which I found to be hugely informative and really, really helpful to me personally in my journey. And so attachment styles, for those of you that don't know, there's a book on it. It's called Attached. And basically what it is when we were growing up, when we were born, we all have a attachment style. And so that will either be a secure attachment style, which means, the saying is in the word, we're secure. Or the other, so 50% of us are secure. The other 50% of us are either avoidant or anxious.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Anxious basically means you enter into relationships, whether they're romantic or otherwise, in an anxious way. You're almost like really kind of like seeking like the love and attention from a person. You can really, I guess, tune in, like if you're very sensitive, you can really tune into another person. So if something is slightly off, you can feel it immediately. You really like resonate with that energy, and like what's happening constantly in the relationship. So it can feel really kind of disabilitating to you if the other person is having a bad day, because you can instantly sense it and it, right? So usually the anxious types are more sensitive. That's actually what I am. And I always found it real struggle when I was in relationships, because I would always be really like vibing with how they were feeling, and then I would have that affect me, and then that would ultimately affect the relationship when maybe they were just going through something that I didn't really necessarily need to kind of be bothered about or worry about. It was just something that they needed to heal or deal with on their own. But because I was so in tune, I would be like anxious. Oh my God, does this mean they're going to break up with me? Oh my God, this is really scary. Now I know, and they're not okay, and they're not telling me anything. So that's quite an interesting one. And then the other one is the avoidant. So, the anxious people are like really want a deep, intimate relationship with someone. Avoidant people want the complete opposite. So they really value their independence. They really value like standing on their own. And although they'll enter into relationships, they always kind of keep you at an arm's length. So the interesting thing is, typically anxious people and avoidant people are attracted to each other, highly attracted to each other, obviously, but they're like the worst matches for each other just because of how they're structured. So, you've got an avoidant person wanting someone to stay at arm's length. You've got an anxious person wanting to have a really deep relationship. So they're always going to be playing like a tug of war with one another. So what I learned out of these attachment styles was really about if I'm looking for a romantic partner, if I'm in, if I'm trying to manifest that, then actually looking for someone that is secure, so that they're not going to kind of, all the things that I have within myself, that's not bad. Like there's nothing wrong with being anxious or avoidant or secure. It's just bad, and the things that have affected you, maybe you've had some traumatic experiences and stuff like that. So it's not about trying to change who you are, but it's about being in relationships with people that aren't going to kind of press that trigger button necessarily.
And being aware, being aware so that when it does get triggered, you know how to navigate it in a way where, is safe for you and comforting for you.
Exactly. And it's like I said, the anxious avoidant pairing, although like, they can exist and they can be together, it's a far more difficult relationship, really, just because they're both wanting like completely different things. Whereas if those types paired up with a secure person, the secure person wouldn't feel bothered by the fact that the avoidant one wants to take their space and wants to have some independence, because they're going to be feeling secure. They're going to be like, I don't mind, you can do whatever you want. And the same way with like the anxious person, if they pair with a secure person, that secure person is going to be open enough and available enough to them to be able to give them that deep love that they're craving. So it just, that heightened awareness around that. And then it's interesting because you start to see it across the board. Like when you meet people, you really see which kind of style they are. So that was a huge help, and they have a lot of practices in the book and a lot of like ways that you can like delve in to kind of understand your own attachment style and kind of work through like past relationships and things like that.
I love that. Yeah, I definitely think I'm like the anxious, like attachment type too.
Yeah.
I definitely resonate with that and can see where that comes up in my life. And I think my partner is probably secure because he's pretty much just fluid with everything, where I'll be like, I'll see him just like sigh and I'm like, are you okay? Like, are you all right? Like, what's going on?
And I think it's harder, like if you're more, now I understand, like it's actually a blessing. If you're anxious, I think it's a blessing because it means that you can tune into other people so deeply that you can literally feel like the moment something's out of balance, you just know it right away. So it's actually a blessing for us as an anxious type to have that gift, but it can become challenging when you're in relationships. So having that understanding of it is like such a breath of fresh air because you can then see it as a gift and not as like something that's hindering you.
No, yeah, 100%. And you're able to navigate it in a way that's like, okay, this is happening and that's all right. And I'm sure that they're okay. And I just am, what can I do to, make sure that they know that they're okay too. And, knowing how to just tune in with that energy, because I'm also an empath, and I think a lot of people that listen to my podcast are also empaths and very, are able to really attach their own feelings to other people's feelings and, understand that whole energy. But and it's something that we have to learn that is like a gift. It's almost like a psychic gift that we have to, grasp and understand and know how to use it for our own advantage and know how to use it to, help the world. Because if you're able to feel somebody's energy and whether that's good or bad, you're actually able to, if you're coming from a space of love, you're able to actually help them in such a deeper way than they probably wouldn't even be able to experience, because they might not even be able to feel those emotions and energies fully themselves, which is maybe why we're picking up on it sometimes. So it's a very interesting thing to learn about. And I'm so, so grateful that you shared those attachment styles, because that's definitely a nice, refreshing thing to, be reminded of, that everybody's different and there are certain styles that people, archetypes that people fit into when it comes to expressing and feeling and loving and all those crazy, wild, amazing emotions and experiences.
Yeah, for sure.
So I also wanted to get a little bit into self-love. And so a lot of my podcast listeners and followers have asked me a lot of questions about self-love, because I think it's really becoming a conversation right now. And people are starting to realize, like, okay, self-love is not just like, baths and like buying yourself candles and all those, very amazing and comforting things. But there's also other ways to show yourself love and respect and compassion. And so I wanted to know a little bit about, your experience with self-love and kind of how you've been able to take this new understanding of love for you in your life and how you navigate it and how you reflect that inward and how you are able to come from a space of love within your own relationship with your own being.
Yeah. Oh, well, this is a really good point. And I'm glad that you described it as like self-love being a conversation, because lately, especially with the work that I've been doing in this space of love, I've been hearing a lot around like self-love being a cliche. It's just a thing that's being put on like social media, like hashtag self-love and this kind of stuff. But I really, really believe that it does start with us. Like, you have to take your own journey inward first of all. No one can take that for you. No one can do that work for you. And as much as we can be in relationships with other people, if you haven't learned like how to love yourself deeply, and how to have that respect for yourself, how to have boundaries with yourself, how to really know yourself. How do you expect to be present with another person, like a whole other being, right? Like that's like, it's it's impossible. Like you need to learn about yourself first. And I don't think that we necessarily have to say, oh, okay, you have to go and take 12 months on your own and do it by yourself. I think having time alone is important, but I think it can be done in the constructs of a relationship as well, as long as you have a partner that is, available and willing for you to kind of go on that journey and supportive of that. So with self-love, it is, hugely important. It definitely has to start with you. For me, like I say, I was always just seeking love outside. It was always outside of myself that I was looking for the love. And it wasn't until I started to go on this journey that I really realized that it was not about finding my soulmate. It was really about tapping into that internal source of love that I have within myself. And I think what happens is when we meet a partner, they almost like spark that connection to our own personal source of love. And so we start being loving to everything. We see love everywhere because they've sparked it in us. And so you're actually tapping into your own source of love, but the other person has just inspired you to do so. And so that's why we're constantly like wanting to go outwards and be in romantic relationships. But if we bring it back to ourselves, the one thing that you can learn to do is learn how to tap into that source within. And that is through the practice of self-love. And like you say, although the candles are nice and the baths are nice, it's more than that. It's more than just, outward things, although those are great as well. So for me, I think this kind of concept of learning how to love myself, learning how to love others, it really comes down to, I guess, a few things really. But I would say from a self-love perspective, it comes down to truly like honoring your own being. And that is through acceptance ultimately. Like we have to say, like, this is who I am and I accept that. And maybe the things about yourself that you like less of, you can evolve and change those if you will, but it's about accepting like where you are right now, and that life is a constant journey. It's always a flow, right? And if we figured everything out right now, I mean, what would we have left to do here, right? Like we'd just go, right? Like we're done. So it's a constant flow, it's a constant process. So coming into acceptance is a key thing of your own self, because that starts to put you into that space of love. Because if you can accept yourself, that is definitely a form of love. The second thing I think is about self-worth, and that was one thing that I struggled with so much. I had my dad like abandon me when I was 14, and that was very painful and really hurtful, and it made me feel as though I was not worthy of any kind of respect, love, caring from any man. And it was only when I started to do certain practices that I started to tap into the fact that I didn't have a good relationship with men, like, whatsoever. And then that made me realize, like, this is why I'd been attracting all of these kinds of negative relationships, and ones that were like kind of pushing my boundaries in the space of abandonment, because that was ultimately like my comfort zone. So stepping into your self-worth and actually believing that you're worthy of love is another key one, because that's going to change the way that you feel about yourself. Like if you believe that you're worthy of love and, just worthy of life, worthy of being.
Joy.
Yeah, and joy. Exactly. It will, exactly. The feeling of self-worth will just change everything around you. So tapping into that is super important. And for me, I did that through a lot of affirmations, literally daily affirmations on my computer. It was like popping up constantly, a little affirmation in the top, like, you are worthy of love. I was like, okay, great. Like on an hourly basis, like it was constant like bombardment of these positive affirmations, and, really journaling about it and writing a lot about you know, how I felt unworthy, first of all, and really discovering that first, because you almost have to go to like a dark, deep depth to discover like why you feel that way, and then you can change it. Just setting up the affirmations won't necessarily work if you didn't kind of deal with the pre pain, I guess, or the pain.
Yeah, you have to be willing to really go into it, you know, especially with, I think a lot of people have wounds surrounding love, and that has come up through, you know, certain things in their life, and it's become almost a defense mechanism to kind of shut it out or to push it back or to, you know, bypass it. But I think that your point of, you know, self-worth and giving ourselves our value back and giving ourselves that understanding nurturance back is so deeply important. And it can be in any setting, you know, if you think there's a lot of people out there who, you know, will just work in a very taxing job, very taxing environment, and then come home to, you know, their children or their husband or their, you know, roommates, and then give all their energy to them, or, you know, and just drain a lot of, there's just a lot of draining I see happening in today's world, where people are just, it's almost natural for ourselves to drain for other people, you know, just drain our energy and drain our love and our compassion and self-understanding for other people. And I think redefining your self-worth and really digging into that is a really good starting point for understanding self-love and how to take care of yourself from a loving space. And if that means, like, you know, you have to drop one of your, you know, tasks, or, you know, compromise some things in your life so that you can fit your ideas of what you think you're worthy of and what you think, you know, is valuable to you and feeling good about your life and your existence, then that's just what has to happen so that you can live a life that you love. Because I think there's a lot of people out there who think that, you know, this will happen and then I'll love life, or I'll get this and then I'll feel like I love life. But really, like you said, you have to accept the things that you might not 100% love. There might be some things that you could kind of do without, but you still got to accept them before that they can go. Which brings me to another really good question that I have for you, which is, you know, how do you recommend and how do you go about loving your darkness, loving your shadow, loving the things in your life that bring you pain and have brought you trauma? You know, what's that kind of process like for you, and coming from a space of love towards these things that may hurt?
Yeah, I'm really glad that you asked that question, because that is definitely a deep question. I'm really happy to like share my experience with you on that. For a long time, my pain was like really just heartbreaking to me. Like, it filtered through into everything. And I describe a lot to like clients that I work with that ultimately we need to think about our lives as, you know, we have like a cup. So you have a cup, maybe in the cup you have water, maybe you have coffee, maybe you have tea. You can have anything you want in there, right? If you trip up while you're holding that cup, it's going to come out, right? Whatever you put in the cup is going to come out. You're going to spill coffee on the floor, for example. If we think about that from our self perspective, right? So if I'm a vessel and inside I have certain things, so for example, my pain of abandonment from my father, or, you know, this pain from a relationship, or the fact that the job that I was working is actually really, you know, frustrating me and I'm not happy about it, then, or anger because someone cut me up on, you know, the on the highway or something like this, you know, then ultimately when I get like triggered, these are the things that are going to fall out: my anger, my frustration, my pain from my abandonment. So we have to really think about how we can move through those things in a positive way and actually really deal with them. And to go deep into that pain and into those wounds is scary. Like, ultimately it's scary. It's a
deep work, very, very deep work.
Very, very deep work. And I think a lot of the reason why people don't go there is because they are afraid of what they're going to find, because they know how much it kind of hurts just on the surface. So in order to really go into it, you feel like I'm never going to come back out if I go in there. But actually, like the reality of that is going into that is what is going to propel you out and is what is going to propel you on your journey. So for me, my biggest source of pain is actually like my biggest source of pleasure now, which is going to sound really crazy. But ultimately, digging deep into that pain has allowed me to understand that like I have a gift from that. So understanding how it feels to be like abandoned and not having like a father figure around, or feeling like real deep pain from that, and understanding like the depth of that pain, and then how that filters into romantic relationships and all of that stuff, that means that like I've done the work. So I can now share my experiences with other people, and I can be someone that holds their hand through the experience. Like I can really help them journey through it. So I would say, like, if anyone is experiencing any pain or has any kind of like, wound, or like something that is really just like kind of got them on the inside, like take the journey inwards. It will be more than worth it, and it will pay off for you. Like I think that like I say, our pain almost is like our gift to the world, but you have to journey through it first of all in order to transform it into the gift.
I agree. And I think, some people, there's really big ways to go about that. And then there's really, minimal ways to go about, diving into that darkness, diving into that trauma. And, yes, of course, you can go on like a retreat, you can go and, get a life coach, or, go to, do something like that. But there's also, ways that you can, like journaling, just simply journaling and, really creating dialogue within yourself on like, what is this traumatic situation? How has it impacted me? How do I feel to this day? How long has it been? Just really dissecting it in your own writing is so powerful, because it takes that trauma and that darkness that maybe is running around our mind and like feels stuck in our body. It gives it an opportunity to be expressed outward. And sometimes journaling for me is just one of the most safest ways I've come to do that, because it's something, very like alone. People, it's like a known boundary, like don't look in somebody else's journal. So, the way that you can have that privacy and not have to like, of course it would be nice if you can like go get a cabin and just a whole like week of just like really diving deep into yourself. But sometimes that's not readily available for everyone, so I think some simple ways is definitely like journaling and just creating that dialogue with yourself, and then maybe finding other people who maybe have had similar experiences that you can create that dialogue with them. And kind of, I think a big thing is that a lot of people feel alienated in whatever that they feel like they're stuck in. We feel like we're alone in these experiences and these traumas and these, it's hard. Like it's definitely hard. I think a lot of people do feel alone in that, but we're not. A lot of us have been through similar things, and a lot of us, have similar pains. And so when we realize that, we're able to come to a space of like love, of that, we can relate with somebody about this, that we're not alone. And then we can really begin, loving the traumatic experiences that happened to us, because it built who we are today. And I think that, there really is no other way to, to heal our darkness other than just learning to love it, learning to accept it. Yeah. Learning to accept it, learning to love it, and learning to honor it for what it is and what it's brought into our lives. Because like you said, even though your dad, did abandon you, which, I'm so sorry to hear that, I can only imagine, how difficult that would be. But I'm sure that it has brought up certain maybe defense mechanisms or, areas that have become 100% necessary for you in this lifetime to be the woman that you are today. So, we can hate it, but at the same time, everything happens for a reason. I'm a firm believer of that. So.
Oh, I 100% agree with you on that. And it's, I think that journey that I had to take with that, I mean, I've literally done like a full circle with it, because although I say he's abandoned me, I'm actually in contact with him now, which which is even more crazy for me that I could go through the whole thing and then start back right again at the very beginning.
That's powerful.
Which really brings its own sense of challenges as well. Obviously now being reconnected with him, that's a whole new journey that I have to like go on and experience how to have him back in my life. But it really is like journeying through that stuff. I love that you talked about journaling, because that's something, a huge practice of mine. I really find it helpful, like in any way that I need to express myself. If it's something that's difficult for me to do, I will always turn to writing for that. And even if it's like communicating with a partner, with a sibling, with family, friends, like if I need to do something where I really need to express myself and I'm going to find it more difficult, I feel like my words are going to get mixed, I will put that down in writing, because it's so healing. It's such a great practice. It's such a way of being able to completely release everything that you have on your mind, put it onto like a page. And like you say, with a journal, nobody needs to read that. Like that is your private space. Nobody needs to come in and like interrupt that. But it is a really sacred way of being able to just find some release in amongst the pain.
Yeah, no, 100%. And yeah, I think that it's one of my favorite tools as well, that I go to, at any time when I'm facing some form of adversity, just going to my journal and just sitting down, even if it's just a page or maybe it's 5 pages, but just like giving myself space to express what I'm going through is so deeply healing. And I think that is a self-love practice that people are becoming more and more aware of and more comfortable with. So I think that's really amazing, because, a lot of people, like, they journaled when they were kids, but as adults, like, not many people make time for that. And I think that's something that, yes, like, make more time for that,
Yeah.
and I'm in love with it. Like the energy I feel after journaling is just like, whew, like it just feels so good, so
yeah,
it's a good one.
I completely agree. And as well, like it's free. I mean, like, you can go for therapy, you can get a life coach, you can like spend all this money, go on a retreat, spend 5 days by yourself, do whatever. Like you literally have a journal there every single morning. Like, and I do a practice called morning pages. So I literally write like 3 streams.
Ah, yes.
Is that what you do as well?
Yeah. I've been integrating that into my everyday as well.
Yeah, so I wake up first thing in the morning, the first thing I do is journal, and it just gets all of the clutter out of your mind onto the page, and then it frees you up for the rest of the day to be able to just like, be clear. And then whatever you have on. So it's like you say, if you're dealing with something that's like, adversity, then, you can journal a lot about that. Maybe you have more to say some days than you do other days, but it is a great practice. I love it so much too.
Yeah, exactly. And some things that I've done, to deepen my love for myself is affirmations, which we touched on in the beginning of the podcast. And, even in those morning pages where, I feel like I don't have a lot to say. Maybe I talked a little bit about my dream, but I'm just like, everything feels good. I'll just, 2 pages of straight just affirmations or something, it's something that, because I think that, yes, it can be very profound to go on a retreat or something and, explore, your shadow and finding love for it and really diving deeper into yourself in that way. But we have to integrate it into our everyday lives, or else, it's something that can just kind of slip away really easily and we can fall back into those old patterns. It's something that we have to build a sustainable foundation for, and a sustainable, like, pattern of doing, because like, we're humans. So we're always going to have more, deep, dark, like icky things to like work through, because that's what we're here to do.
Yeah.
So we need, I think, creating an everyday practice of, even just journaling or some form of self-love expression is, so, it needs to be an everyday practice. It can't just be like a sometimes, or when I'm with my partner, or, my dog, it needs to be like integrated in your everyday, towards yourself, for yourself. And like, that's how, in my opinion, that's the only way to really get the most out of it, is by creating a sustainable everyday practice.
Yeah, I completely agree. And actually, in my coaching program, that's one of the first things that we touch on. So the first thing that we step into is grounding yourself. So creating a practice. And so for me, I have quite a few practices that I will do first thing in the morning to like ground myself. But it's like, it can look different for each person. I personally think journaling is amazing for everyone, but some people express themselves in different ways. My sister, for example, she would probably rather express herself through dance than she would through written words. So we have to honor the fact that everybody is different, but having a grounding practice like first thing in the morning to just kind of like check, allow you to check in with yourself and see how you feel, like that is such a great way of bringing more self-love to you. And it can literally be 5 minutes. Like, who doesn't have 5 minutes when you wake up before you leave your bed? Just do something for yourself for 5 minutes, even if it's just to lay there
and
like
breathe.
Exactly.
Exactly. And I think it just comes to also a space of just like self-respect and devotion. We can say that we can't fit these things in, but we can always, if that means that you have to set your alarm for 10 minutes, before you usually would wake up, so that you can just take a little bit of extra time to like show up for yourself. And it makes such a difference. Like when I do that, my day literally feels 10 times longer. My energy feels 10 times brighter. I'm able to actually navigate the day in a way that is coming from a space of love, because there's not like confusion. There's not, these blockages inside of us. Like some days there are, but I'm able to handle them a lot better because I already showed up and began my day with devoting to my own self and my own time and exploration. I think self-love really just comes down to devotion to, making sure that you're living the best life that you possibly can, coming from a space of love.
Yeah, I agree. I completely agree.
Yeah. And then another question that I have for you is this, somebody actually asked, was how to feel or how to release shame, guilt, and fears about yourself in a loving way. Because I feel like that's a really hard thing to do. That's something that we're not taught how to do. And so I would love to hear, some ways that you navigate that and that you teach in your course.
Yeah, that is a really, really powerful that's again like another very deep place to go. Well, I think that a lot of the time with the guilt and the shame that we hold on, it's almost like an unconscious contract that we make with ourselves, that we're going to feel this way about something. So something happens in our lives, and instead of like moving through it, flowing through it and saying, okay, that was bad, and just like having acceptance for it in the moment or shortly afterwards and then letting it go and move forward, we somehow get bound to that action, activity, whatever it is that happened, and we really like hold on to it. And so I do, there's one day where we talk a lot about, like kind of ancient contracts and unconscious patterns that we have, things that we do that we're not really so necessarily aware of. And I think when it comes to like, shame and guilt and these kinds of things, it can almost be due to the fact that like it could be something we've said like previously. So some of the things like that do come up is like, especially around love, it's like where maybe you're feeling like maybe you hurt your partner in the past or something like that, and then maybe at the time of the hurt, like they said something to you that's like negative, that's something along the lines of like I loved you so much and you hurt me so much. And then you're like, you're holding on to the fact that, oh my gosh, I hurt them so much. Like no one's ever hurt me as much as you hurt me. And it's almost like you just like cling to that statement that person had made about you. And instead of just like taking it as like information, because ultimately when we're conversing with each other, it's all just information, right? Like that's what it is there for, right? So instead of just seeing it as information, we kind of cling to it. And then we have this like repeat affirmation, almost like negative affirmation in our mind, like, I can't believe that I hurt that person so much. And you just constantly go over it and over it and over it. So I think it's really important to work with like counseling out those things. So if there is something that you feel negatively towards or about, it's about finding peace with that. And I think that the best way to do that is to actually go into it, acknowledge what happened, get angry, like feel really guilty about it, like allow yourself a set amount of time to actually really feel the feelings of it. And like you can wallow in that and actually like really deeply go into it, because I think sometimes we don't allow ourselves to actually express how we're feeling about something. So if something traumatic happens, we almost want to immediately bypass the pain part and move straight into the how do I get over this. But it's very important to actually acknowledge like that you're angry that happened, or you're angry that you have to feel guilty about that, or you're angry that you're like have to feel ashamed about something. You know, you have to really go into it and deal with the physical emotion that's occurring right now and allow that to be, first of all. Once you've then allowed that to be and you feel that you've expressed it in all the ways that you possibly can, like through obviously yourself, then you can move towards more acceptance. And then I think the things like affirmations, self-care practices, that's when that stuff starts to come in and can actually be helpful to you to start to move you through it. But you do definitely need to deal with it first of all,
and feel it, and give yourself the adequate space that you need to really understand what you're going through. We're so quick to just shut it out, you know. We're so quick to just be like, oh no, I don't want to feel that, that's not comfortable. And so I think we need to give ourselves like adequate space to actually experience and understand, you know, this is what I'm going through. This is why I'm going through it. This is how it really makes me feel. And go into those feelings. You know, don't be scared to feel shame or guilt or fear or anger. You have to let yourself feel it. It's so crazy because, I mean, this is just a random example, but I got in a car accident like a week ago and everybody was safe.
Wow.
Yeah, everybody was safe. Everybody was good. You know, our cars just got a little banged up and it was my fault. And it was my first, you know, time getting in an accident. And like where I got in the accident, like I drive by it like almost every day. And so I've been, you know, because in the moment, you know, we're just feeling it, trying to like, you know, get everything taken care of, make sure everybody's okay. But every time, like for the past week that I've driven, you know, by where the accident happened, I've had to kind of, you know, deal with that anxiety or that trauma or that, you know, guilt, like, why didn't I do this? Or I wish I could have stopped faster, or, you know, all these things go through our heads, and we have to like let ourselves feel them. Because at first I was like, no, it's okay. And I'm like, no, I actually am like kind of upset at myself that happened, or, you know, and just like holding space for you to acknowledge what you're going through and fully feel those emotions and come to terms with, you know, what happened. And that's just like a small example. There can be other really big things, but we have to let ourselves feel it, and the universe will just keep triggering those emotions and experiences until we really deal with it in a way that's like evolved. You know, we can't just keep like shutting it out, you know. So now I drive by and I'm like, okay, I feel like I've fully felt what I needed to feel about that situation. And then, you know, now it's like, it's okay, you know, it's all right. And that can happen with like childhood traumas or, you know, relationship traumas. Like maybe every time, you know, like your partner's grumpy or something, you get hurt because something happened another day where they were grumpy and you guys got in a fight that was a little bit traumatic or something. You know, there's so many ways that our emotions and our traumas get triggered, and we're so quick to kind of bypass it, like, oh no, okay, I don't want to do that. But really we need to. I think that this is an important dialogue to be had, because I think, you know, no matter where you're at in the world right now, there's things that are happening that are uncomfortable and sometimes scary. And we have to, you know, we have to talk about it. We have to be more open to understanding that this is just a part of life and evolution, and it's okay. Like, it's okay.
Yeah, I really agree. It's normal. Like, it is normal. There's not another person, you know, you are not the only person experiencing guilt, shame, hurt, pain. All of these things exist so that we can understand like what the other side is like too, you know, so that we can understand what joy feels like, so we can understand what happiness and abundance and prosperity, like we have to have both in order to understand, you know, because if we only had like joy and happiness and these kinds of things, we wouldn't we wouldn't appreciate them as much as we do
Yeah,
when
we
we
wouldn't.
have them
Yeah,
now.
yeah. I don't think we would be able to actually like feel them as deeply too, you know?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, I think we gotta, I think it's, a practice to, because a lot of us, we've been desensitized. We've been desensitized from the things that hurt us. We've been desensitized from the things that feel good. And so I think it's a true practice of like loving yourself, of, letting yourself feel again, feeling
yeah.
feeling safe and feeling everything, feeling safe and feeling the good, the bad, the ugly, the happy, the joyous, the blessings, just allowing ourselves to actually recognize them for what they are and allow our senses to tune in with them and feel them, and understanding that we're safe in that. You're safe in feeling whatever you are, because your body is going to protect you. I believe God doesn't give us what we can't handle. The universe
Yep.
doesn't give us what we can't handle. So allow yourself to handle whatever you're given, and to feel it and experience it and dissect it, and then eventually you overcome it and you evolve beyond it. But
Yeah.
it's when we shut those out that it just becomes bigger and badder and scarier. So
And
deal
the
with
and
it.
the sorry, I was going to say, and the universe just will keep presenting the same lesson to you over and over again in multiple ways until you decide to do the work with it. Like, we cannot bypass that. So you either do it now this time round, or you do it in 5 years time, but you're still going to keep getting those same repeat lessons until you really choose to do the work.
I 100% agree, and it's something that's like just so dominant right now, and where we're at with humanity. Like, people are becoming a lot more aware of just things like mental illness and trauma, and like being triggered. Like, that's something that, like, on almost a global scale, that is being talked about and recognized for probably pretty much the first time in human history. We're actually able to create dialogue on like a world scale that these aren't real and these things happen, and that you can seek help. And so I think that it's really good that we're building that. We're starting to get to a place where it's like, okay, I'm not alone in this. And I think that's
Yeah.
because when you feel alone in it, like, I think that humans, like I said in the beginning of the podcast, I believe we all come from a space of love, and within that, we all have a purpose, and we all want to feel like that we're contributing to the collective love, the collective heart of humanity. And so when we're not tuned into that, and we feel alone, we feel alienated, it hurts. It's going against our human nature. Like, we're social creatures. We're supposed to connect with one another.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it's really, it really is like, coming back to kind of the question that you asked at the beginning, earlier, just around,
Uh-huh.
guilt, shame, love, all of these things. Like, it really is about moving through those painful things so that you can come back to a space of love, so that we can return to like our natural state of being. Because our natural state of being, like you say, I very much agree with you in the sense that we are born with love. It's the first thing that we're ever given. And so ultimately that is the nature of our being, to be loving. Because I really don't think anybody ever wakes up in the morning and says, how can I go around and make everybody else's day hell? I don't think that anyone in the world wakes up
Yeah,
with
yeah.
that intention. It's just maybe, what they're going through at that moment in their life, or maybe there's something that's coming through for them that is, really, really painful. And so it's harder for them to live with the lens of love. But ultimately, we need to say, you know what, I've experienced all these things, and maybe that was painful for me. But actually now, like, I owe it to myself. I owe it to honor myself in a way to bring myself back to a state of love.
100%. Another question that I have just a few more questions before we end, but I'm curious about the most, I guess, grand or magnificent healing that you've witnessed through love, maybe for yourself or for a client. I would just love to kind of hear a story revolving around like the medicine of love and the healing that you've witnessed through it.
Oh, okay. This is another good one. You have such good questions. Let me have a little think for
I've
a
always
second
been very
here.
curious, so
Yeah, I can really tell that.
Yeah.
It's good. It's good. Okay, let's think. So I would say that it's my own personal journey of love. And I think that offers the greatest healing. Really, it was my age of love that I lived. So my 30th birthday. So from my 30th birthday to my 31st birthday, where I just spent this entire year dedicated to the art of learning how to love, and really just coming into that. And I would say that the way that I experienced the most healing from it is just that when I started that journey, I really thought that love was all around, how do I meet my soulmate? I mean, I literally kind of went into it almost with like that intention, like, how do I meet my soulmate and have my spiritual partner? Like, and this was what I was really, really like banking on. But what I hadn't discovered yet about love, and so through putting myself on this journey and really like just being a seeker of truth when it comes to love and learning more about it, was actually, the only person that can ever heal me. It's never going to be outside of myself. It's always going to be inside of myself. So going on that journey, there were many twists and turns. There were many times, like there were times when I like literally broke down because I was like, I just keep repeating the same mistakes in my love life. Like I keep meeting the same partner that is, I don't know, abandoning me, or not good for me, or I'm not able to be fully worthy, or they've got control issues, or there's all of these different things that kept coming to me. And I would say up until about the first like 4 months solidly, I was just still in a little bit of a mess with things, like I was really trying to like just work through like what all of this stuff meant. There was a lot of like undesirable attachment where I'd put like an ideology onto a person, like, yeah, that's the person I'm going to be with, and then ultimately like holding something really tight to them and realizing that ultimately they weren't the right person for me, but I was so focused and intent on that. It was like, oh, I want to be this person. And as I kind of went through, I began to be far more conscious about every little thing that I was doing, and I could see like almost like the lessons coming to me before they were even there. Yeah, I was like, oh my gosh, if I do this, the lesson's going to be that. But it was because I'd become so, like, the way that I journeyed through it is because I became really present with love, and I was able to actually just like tap into that internal source. And so I think the biggest healing to come back to that was about healing firstly the source of my pain through love, so actually loving the wounds that I have. So for me, it's primarily this abandonment issue from my father, because that was the biggest, most painful thing that I had happen in my life. So healing that, and then healing my relationship with men. So having a desire to actually see men in a positive light. Like for me, because of what had happened to my father, I wasn't aware of it, but I saw men in such a negative way, that I almost just had an expectation that all men were going to do me wrong ultimately. And that was never going to be, a sustainable way to live my life. Definitely not a good way to enter into a relationship if the person you're entering it with, you already have, without even saying anything, you already assume that they're going to do you wrong. Like, I mean, that's not a good foundation for a relationship ultimately.
I agree.
So kind of like going through those and ultimately like growing through them. So growing through the pain and having love at the forefront of everything I was doing. So being constant in my kind of intention that this was going to be a loving way. So seeing the pain of my father as something that I could love and work through, seeing how I was thinking about men, or not aware of how I was thinking about men, but having that kind of come to light, realizing that I need to kind of reset these things and actually like evolve them into something that I can say, you know what, like I I've lived the life, I've lived the pain, and actually now I'm out the other side of it.
Yeah.
And ultimately realizing that, yeah, all of that pain that you go through is for something. It's so that you can really understand it, and once you heal from it, like, it's something that you keep as almost like, it's like, I don't know, it's like a sacred lesson. Like, it's like this thing that you cherish, the fact that you've had that pain. But I think I would have only have come to terms with, like, the stuff that happened with my dad, the way that I felt about men, the negative relationships I was experiencing with men. I think I would have only have come through that and healed from it, because I was intent on doing everything with love. And if I hadn't have done that journey, I think I would still be the same way that I was before, which is like not being aware of any of those things.
Yeah, that's so powerful. That's such a life-changing healing experience, to have to actually heal from those perceptions, because you had ultimately you had to rewire your brain. You had to literally rewire your brain so that you could evolve beyond that. So thank you so much for sharing that, because I'm sure dozens of people, experience the same thing, and it's reassuring to know that somebody else has done it too.
Yeah. Well, I would say, like, just on that, I would challenge everyone that listens to this podcast to take out a journal, and when you have 5 minutes spare, to literally journal on 3 things. The first thing I would like you to write, so the world is, and then journal on that. Men are, and then journal on that. Women are, and then journal on that, because you will find what comes through may be very, very interesting to you.
Oh my gosh, I'm gonna do that. That sounds like a very deep. Those are questions that we don't ask ourselves often, but definitely we need to understand what we think about that.
Yeah, and that was where my healing began. Well, the awakening to the fact that I needed to heal that, because I truly didn't even know until I did that practice that I had this kind of preconception about men, that I was like shocked. I couldn't believe it. I was like, but I have friends that are men, and I have no problem with men, but apparently inside I did.
Yeah. It's sometimes there's things that are hiding inside of us, perceptions or ideas that are hiding inside of us that we didn't really know were there, but they were deeply seated to where they directly reflect our lives and how we think about ourselves and the world that we live in. So that's a really good practice. Yes, everybody, please do that, and let us know your experiences and kind of what comes up from you from that, because that's something that I think should be shared.
And I will just say, like, for me, that practice absolutely changed, like, fundamentally the way that I see men and my relationships with men. And for me, like, that has been such a beautiful, like, healing experience, and like the way that I can, like, engage with, like, men now, and the way that I can speak with them, and the way that I can be open with them, that I can give them my heart. I don't mean it necessarily in a romantic sense, but like the way that I have been able to open myself up now to men has been so wonderful, because I always had a deep connection with women. I guess being one of them kind of helps, but I didn't realize there was this disconnect between me and men, and now it's like, it's magical, because I feel like I have such a deeper understanding of men and kind of like how they are, that I can connect so much more. It's really wonderful.
Yeah, and I feel like even with females, like, sitting down and also understanding your perception of what you think females are, even just being another female, that can also be very healing, to just know, like, what your perception is, and then give you space to actually explore, like, okay, what is femininity, what really are females, and how can I learn about females from the other women in my life? And I'm so excited to do that, and I'll let you know as well, how that impacts me. Yeah, that's so powerful. So we're gonna kind of wind down and close up. And I just wanted to give you a little bit of space to tell people some more about your course and your book and kind of where they can find your work that you have out there and how they can connect with you a little bit deeper beyond the podcast.
Oh, okay, great. Thank you. So, as I've spoke, this journey to love is something that I am so incredibly passionate about, and it's really been with me my whole life. So I would invite you to go to the Insight Timer app. It's a meditation app. Download that. They offer a free 7-day trial on courses. So you can go on there and download my course. It's called Learning How to Love. And that's a 10-day course. It's around like 12 or 13 minutes every single day. And it really just talks you through exercises, and each day is like a slightly different themed topic. So first of all, you start off with like, what is love and defining that for yourself, moving through like opening to love. And then I talk about the attachment styles that I've talked about here today on the podcast, giving you much more information around that. Also stepping into things like love languages, and ancient contracts, how we can break those ties. So there's a lot of content in there, and it's a really good starting point to learning how to understand yourself so you can love yourself better, and then therefore being able to give that love outwardly to the rest of the world as well. And so that was my kind of intention behind the course, was really around, if we can get ourselves to learn how to love, and we can do that work for ourselves, that's going to create a more loving world. And ultimately, that's like my main passion in life, to get people to learn how to love better. I also a life coach and have a Elevate coaching program where I talk about health, power, and purpose. You can find out more about that and my book, 28, The Age of Power, on my website. So you can find me at www.fabsthoughts.com. And I'm also on Instagram as Fabs Thoughts as well.
Okay, beautiful. And I'll share those links in the show notes so that people can very easily find you. And, I just wanted to thank you so much for sharing your medicine with us. I think that this is a very powerful conversation that people, are going to take a lot of value from and a lot of lessons from. So, if there's some deeper stuff that you got to dive into and that this podcast has brought up for you, I invite you to please reach out to Fabienne and either do a life coach session, or look at the app, or read her books, and dive a little bit deeper into this, because this is just the surface. This is just a surface, and this is a good way to just kick off your new understanding of love, and diving deeper inside of yourself, and finding more love for your life. And I think for both of us, we can agree that we want nothing more for the world to step deeper into our hearts. I think that a lot of disrest and disease in people comes from a lack of love. Like I said before, we've been very desensitized. And I think that in order for the world to like really come to a place where we're collectively healing, and like, healing all the damage that we've done to not just the planet, but to ourselves and like different cultures, is we need to tune back into our hearts. And that always begins, like we said, with yourself. So feel safe in this journey, feel comfortable in this journey, and definitely reach out to Fabienne or, myself if you need some help with that, because we understand how difficult that can be. Yes. Well, thank you so, so much for coming onto the podcast and sharing your medicine with us. I truly appreciate it, Fabienne.
Oh, well, thank you so much for having me. It's been such a beautiful conversation, and I couldn't agree more with the things that you've said. I'm so, so grateful to be able to share this message with other people and to help them on their journey to learning how to love.
Oh my gosh, yes. Well, thank you so much, and have a beautiful day.
Thank you.
What a beautiful experience to listen to Fabienne's story and hear her medicine. I really hope that it impacted you guys in a very special way. Please let us know what you think. You can leave a review on iTunes, which will help us out greatly. And make sure to check the links in the show notes so that you guys can follow her on Instagram, find her book, and also if you're interested in joining her online coaching, you can do that through there as well as the Insight Timer. I think on the Insight Timer, you get like a 7-day free trial to do any of the courses. So definitely recommend you go and do that and at least get a kickstart on your journey to redefining love and reclaiming love for yourself. I'm so honored to have this podcast for you guys. And, if you ever have any suggestions or you have any topics that you want me to explore, or you have people that you want me to bring onto the podcast, please reach out and let me know who you want to hear and what you want to hear. You can always email me at thewildmedicinepodcast@gmail.com, or you can reach out to us on Instagram, which is at thewildmedicinepodcast. So yeah, definitely give us a follow and reach out. This is Earthny under @Earthny_energy. Much love, guys, and I hope you have a beautiful and blissful evening or day or week or wherever you are in this world. I'm sending so much love and blessings to you guys from the bottom of my heart, from the bottom of my soul. Reiki to you. Much love.